Welcome back, folks, to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. On today's show, we have Sohana Arni, LCMIES. She has experienced many of the aspects of the lighting profession, from starting her career as a specifying engineer to outside specification sales. Love that she was in sales, by the way. Manufacturer rep to custom lighting product development and sales management, and even a little bit of lighting design. At Cooper Lighting, she has held roles in product management, marketing management, manager of architectural markets over a few architectural brands, and currently is the director of marketing and design for 3D printing. She brings over 20 years of experience. She also created and developed the first acoustic lighting product series for Cooper Lighting called Shaper Sense. This product series has earned 8 awards and recognitions. Greg, this is going to be a good one. I feel like it. But here, just like before we do, you have to tell the folks, go to cooperlighting.com. That's COOPERLIGHTING.com. Greg Eric.
That's right. Cooper Lighting Solutions delivers forward-thinking lighting solutions and an industry-leading portfolio of indoor and outdoor lighting controls, and smart lighting systems that improve people's well-being while making buildings, homes, and cities smarter and more sustainable. These solutions are specifically designed to simplify and personalize lighting, solve complex business challenges, and leverage data insights to meet the unique needs of their customers. Cooper Lighting Solutions is a business unit of Signify, the world leader in lighting, and seeks to unlock the extraordinary potential of light for brighter lives and a better world. For more information, where should they go, Mike?
Yeah, before we tell them where to go, which we do a lot actually, the product, the Shaper Sense, has earned awards and recognitions. I thought you were going to talk about it, but Architect Magazine Spring 2019 selection, Best of Neocon Gold 2019 Lighting and Hospitality, IES Progress Report, obviously a high-level award there, SSL Magazine 2019, Architectural Products Magazine 2019-20, Good Design. Sohana has earned 13 patents. Aha. And 2 Bachelor of Science degrees in chemical engineering and architectural engineering. I had to go back to her because I thought it was so good. I thought it was an ad. But anyway, you're going to go to cooperlighting.com. That's COOPERLIGHTING.com. And of course, the new members of the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. We want to welcome them in and let them know that this is the place to be. Sohana Arni, welcome to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here, everybody.
Yeah. So that's a big reason we had you on. It was to talk about the product, Mike. I mean, the product and the idea in general. That's what we want to do today, and some of your background as well. So let's kind of dive into it right away with the acoustic lighting. So Cooper has an acoustic line, as Mike mentioned there. When did you guys get started in that market, and why?
So I would say it probably was the summer of, I guess, like 2017. We have a yearly sort of product pitch to our executive teams. And I had actually just out of more curiosity than anything, and my own personal interest in sort of hospitality, decorative, sort of looking at other places to find sort of inspiration. I attended an event called Neocon, and if I don't think most people on the lighting side probably are familiar with it, but it's basically a once a year event normally held in Chicago at the Mart, which is about a city block. They used to have their own zip code. That's how big it was. It's about 18 or 19 stories, right on the river. And they have an event for interior designers, architects, for the most part, any profession that wants to understand sort of the commercial furniture, interior space market. This event, just to give you some relativity, is, we maybe pulse 25,000 people to attend Light Fair. It's 3 times that big. And so you can imagine that it draws a lot of attention and a lot of prowess. And so, I remember asking my boss at the time, I was like, I'm really interested in this event. I'd like to go see it. And so I actually did that a couple of years in a row. And what I noticed between, year 1 and year 2 of attending was the amount of companies and manufacturers that were geared towards some sort of sound absorption or sound mitigation type products. And I would say it was probably like a 30% increase between the 2 different years, which sort of, was sort of like an aha moment, like
Okay, so
something
hang
is
on a
going
second
on
here.
here.
Hang on a second here. Hang on.
All
So you're
right.
talking about acoustic lighting. You're talking about light fixtures that also are sound dampening?
Sound absorbing,
Sound
correct.
absorbing, okay.
And
So
blocking
the
in our
actual
case.
fixture itself is actually like my studio here, which has
Mm-hmm.
sound dampening equipment all over it. And so when you come in here, it's super quiet. And you guys how is this accomplished?
So it's really through the material. So it's sort of like, you look at the lighting industry and it's like, okay, we know how to make lights, but there's a whole side, another industry. I can see the acoustic tile ceilings above your desk. There's sound absorption happening. When you have hard surfaces that do a lot of reflection, but you notice it when you're in a space that has terrible, just like lighting, terrible sound absorption, because you can't hear people. I mean, think about really beautiful restaurants that you're sitting across from someone about 3 feet away and you're leaning in like, what? Because
But that's good
you can't hear.
sometimes. That's
That's good
good
sometimes.
sometimes. Sometimes it's good.
Depends.
Depends on what you're talking about with the person beside you, and you don't want anyone else to hear.
Exactly. Or your
So,
audience. Yeah. Yeah. But you don't want to be yelling across
sure,
your
of
table,
course.
right? So, yeah.
So you were at this
Yeah.
show. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and being able to kind of observe sort of the differences of what this industry was looking at, that sort of leads us as lighting people to kind of be like, what's going on over there? This is a corporate interiors or commercial interiors or hospitality or whatever, right? I mean, it could be exterior as well, but there's something going on over here, and people are paying attention to sound and in a different way, and observing a company I'd seen that was traditionally a furniture or slash materials company attempting to do lighting. It's sort of like an aha moment, like, wait a minute, we're the lighting people, we know how to
That's a
make
paradigm
lights.
shift.
Yeah, it was just sort of an observation to sort of say, I think we should be able to integrate both, and we can figure it out. Lighting is actually somewhat complicated, right? It's based on physics and it's based on attributes of that, and so you kind of want to marry the two together and be like, all right, if we put sound absorption materials on our fixtures, maybe that could help with a number of different things, right? Installation, total cost, price to the owner, whatnot. So yeah, there was just sort of a, kind of a thought moment there that like, maybe this is something else that we could look into.
So the silence movement. So we have another podcast. No, it's important. We have another
Yeah.
podcast called Starving for Darkness. That show could also be called Starving for Silence, and
Yeah.
it wouldn't change it much, because darkness and silence, like quiet, is something that a lot of people are lacking in their lives right now. There's a lot of clatter. There's a lot of din. There's a lot of things going on around people, the honking of horns, the beeping of phones, the alerts. And if you can
Yeah.
add to that sense of calm, if you ever came into the studio and sat down, the first thing everybody says is, it's so quiet in here. So
Yeah.
I think there's something to that. And you guys incorporated these materials and these forms into your light fixtures.
Yep. And not only that, we, being part of Cooper Lighting, you sort of want to make sure that whatever you come out with is top of the top line, right? So you want to make sure you've done your homework, that these fixtures actually do what they say, and not just that, hey, we put some stuff together and slapped it together and threw it out in the market. So we wanted some resilience in our product offering. And in that, we actually partnered with what we felt was the industry's best in a company called Phil's Felt. Just to give you a perspective, Phil's Felt is owned by Knoll, who got a company or acquired by Herman Miller. That positions them at approximately $3.6 billion, the largest commercial contract company in the world. But really, it's just about the fact that they had this amazing offering of stuff that we just felt like these guys are the best. So we approached them and asked, hey, we make lights, you guys make sound absorption material. Why don't we partner together? And thus a partnership was born. So,
Okay, you said they do what they say. So what is it that you're saying, and how do you know that they're doing what they're saying?
good question. So have materials that we felt were superior, or the way that they approach the market. And so we, with quite a bit of iteration and product iterations, developed some products that we felt were sort of superior in terms of sound absorption. And guess what? They perform really well in terms of lighting. So you kind of integrate both. And the way that we validated this was, not only did we go to one testing lab in the US, we went to two, the two top sound labs. Maybe that's the best way to put it. One is located in Buffalo, one is in Chicago. And we actually tested both just to make sure, because we knew that we were going to be benchmarked and sort of, if we don't do things right, people are going to come after. So we want to make sure we tested it in different methods. And that's why we're able to publish the results that we have. I think, just to kind of tie it back to those awards, and I'm not going to say this permanently, and maybe someone can correct me, but I want to make sure. At last I knew that we were the only acoustic integrated lighting product that was recognized by the MIES. So that
Well,
just
you're the
meant
first
that
one to tell us
benchmark
about it on the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. So whatever it is, let's go. We're good to go. I never heard of this before. I think it's pretty cool. So what you're doing is you're contributing to the sound dampening or the sound absorption within a space, along with other. So you're sort of melding the lighting into other aspects of building a comfortable space. And so the lighting is now, you're not compromising the lighting at all, but then you're adding to that sound dampening. Do I have it correct?
Correct. Even in terms, I would pivot to say that with our products, because of where the positioning of the lighting is within the acoustic product, gives you even glare reduction. Because when you look at wellness, well building kind of attributes, and what they consider important, direct glare,
So the light is all
light.
indirect. The light is indirect off the ceiling and out, and the bottom of the fixtures are sound dampening?
Nope, it's all direct, indirect.
Okay,
But
direct,
because of the
indirect.
cavity
Okay.
of the fixture kind of gives you this sort of ability to, it's sort of the way we designed it was sort of an open window. When it's off, you can actually look through it. So it's not so, overbearing if it's a large constructed fixture in a space. But then when it's on, you have this performance product that distributes light as we would expect from, conglomerate type, to actually produce performance lighting. But now you've encompassed it within sound absorption materials. But when you actually put it in the space, what and I would say we theoretically say that it's also sound blocking, because it's stopping sound waves from kind of going through the space and sort of helping eliminate that sort of reverberation that kind of occurs. Because you're in a nice studio space, you've got it controlled, everything's probably been dialed in to a kind of minimizing any sort of like echoing within your
The only
walls
echo
and
comes
space.
off the light fixtures. So we gotta
Well,
get
exactly.
some of these lights into the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast studio, Greg. Look, man, I'm pretty excited
I think
about
I could
this.
hook you up.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, let's get it going. But Greg, it's interesting that I love the fact that they're sort of engaging in the more than just the lighting of the space and adding that element, because in this studio here, the only thing that reflects, that bounces sound, is the light fixtures. Um,
Yep.
Greg, is this something that you think lighting distributors are going to add into their repertoire? Like, how do we get in this game? I'm going to throw
Yeah,
it
so
over to
that's
you, and
what
you can take it back over to Sohana.
that's always what I'm always looking at from that angle, is how does it make sense and where does it make sense? And what I'm seeing in office spaces is, the transition from places that have cubicle walls, for example. And I was in one the other day that says, yeah, we have all these. There's no one in there right now. Obviously, it's a little different time right now. But either way, they
Yeah.
said, we're going to take them all down and make it a wide open space. And when you think about that, and that's obviously where this idea comes from, why it makes sense is for that exact application, right? I mean, there's going to be a lot more noise that comes in when walls are removed.
Not just walls, but ceilings. So if you think
Okay.
about kind of, if the trends sort of, well, what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of the evolution of the office space. I mean, 20 years ago, cubicle walls were highly accepted. Not even highly accepted, they were high, which sort of isolated people. And you actually had conditions where you're heating and cooling spaces differently because of high partitions and its energy costs that could actually be reduced. So the other part of it was the way that developers or building owners were trying to minimize floor to ceiling spaces. So and that's still happening today, where people are trying to gain an entire floor just by shrinking the ceilings. It almost, the way that we approached this was sort of an evolution of a defiance from the design community, saying, wait a minute, you're now going to shrink my floor to ceiling. I can't put an acoustic tile ceiling in this space anymore because it makes it feel really enclosed. So if I remove that acoustic ceiling, then maybe it makes the space feel more open up. You've got cable trays, you've got conduit, you've got exposed ductwork, you've got all these things in the ceiling that you didn't have before. And this was, indicative of about 15 years ago of that open office design, right? But what did it do? It actually, those kind of exposed hardware or, systems really invoked sort of a presence of more industrial feel. So now you're going to introduce materials like glass or concrete or brick or any of those that don't have any good sound absorption materials. So now you've taken away the sound absorption acoustic ceiling and you've introduced hard surfaces. So it's almost like a conflict of interest of being able to have people sit at their desk and feel like, hey, I can focus on my task and get some stuff done, and I have enough ability to do that. But the design of that system, which was great for collaboration, you overhear somebody talking and you're like, oh, hey, yeah, I can contribute to this conversation. But then there are times when you don't want to contribute to that conversation.
There's times you don't want to hear what the hell they're talking about.
Exactly.
Like some people think is a normal conversation can be super offensive or annoying. Actually.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
Exactly.
I mean, whatever side you're on, whatever it is, like,
yeah.
Whether you have two
For
people,
sure.
two young guys talking about chasing tail on Friday night, or you got
Yeah.
you got two crazy Christians talking about converting you to Jesus, whatever the hell it is.
Whatever
Like
it is.
there are
Exactly.
times when you don't want any part of it. Like you just want to be in your own
Exactly.
space and doing your work. And you got nothing against them. Talk. I don't
No.
care what you talk
Hey.
about.
But then there might be
wanna
somebody
hear it.
talking about a project, and you're like, wait a minute, what are you doing on that? And hey, maybe I have something I'm working on. You might need to know about that on on that process of your project or whatever. But we don't get to control that, right? Noise, unlike lighting, you can turn it on and off. You can't really turn sound on and off. A siren or a fire truck runs by you. You don't get to control that.
Well,
So
that's what
there's
the rise of Bose Quiet Comfort headphones. Like everybody that flies a lot has a set of Bose Quiet Comfort headphones because they just want a
Yeah.
little bit of silence. And there's other things like in Europe, you have silent train cars where
Yeah.
it's like this is a quiet car. You can't talk on this car. What do you mean I can't talk? No talking on your phone and having a conversation with your friend that you think is super cool. It's nice and quiet in here. And everybody's sitting, you can read the newspaper, and it's just a quiet. And I think if lighting can contribute to that, I think it's a huge innovation, Greg Eric. But how do we sell it? We're back to that again.
Well, let's get into let's get into the product a little because that's what I need to understand
Okay.
more to be able to sell it. So it's a decorative fixture. I looked at it on the website, and it's a decorative fixture with multiple color options and things, but it's always suspended, correct?
For now it's always suspended. Yeah.
Okay.
And we do have an additional sort of linear line from our Nearray family that sort of has the linear baffles. So when you think about acoustic tiles, all you've really done is taken a horizontal surface and made a vertical.
Okay. And as far as the shape, I think you kind of alluded it to there, but round or square or rectangle, is that where we're at with it right now?
Really basic shapes. I mean, you've got the box, you've got a trapezoid sort of angled, which actually oddly when we kind of looked at the shapes and we looked at the data back from our testing labs, it's actually the most conducive shape to helping sound absorption, which is kind of interesting. And then you've got can have squares without round. So we've got drums. And then, like I said, a linear baffle family next to us, sort of with the slot family, sort of has that integrated lighting and then non-lit baffles that they offer as well.
So the suspension, though, Greg, is key to the sound absorption. That's part of it. I believe. I'm sorry. I'm speaking here, but maybe that's not true. But I know that when I built the studio here, that if I wanted the light, I had to have suspended fixtures. That the in ceiling or surface mount fixtures would have caused there to be less sound dampening, or a less sound absorption. So I think the suspension is part of the sound dampening effect. Is that correct?
I think it could look like that because you're basically introducing a product in a lower plane.
Hmm.
So as sound is bouncing, it's stopping when it hits the fixture.
And
Or
it's stopping
absorb
from the
that
top
sound.
too. So if it goes off the ceiling and
Yeah.
down,
So
it's stopped from the top
right.
as well. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yep. So if you look at like prop materials, so acrylic or glass or wood or any of those have something called an NRC, which is a noise reduction coefficient value. All that means is that, hey, sound is hitting a surface and getting absorbed. And a certain percent may, depending on the value of that NRC, so 1.0, for instance, is 100% sound absorption. But if it's 0.75, which is maybe a really good ceiling tile, that means 25% of that sound is going back into the space until it hits another surface and a certain amount is absorbed and then it goes back. And so it keeps going until the sound deadens.
And
So
that's where
your
you get
fixtures,
these sounds, like it's almost like a hum or drum through like a large mall, because sound's just bouncing off everything and
Yeah.
becoming like a white noise when you're walking
Yeah.
through a space. Noise reduction coefficient value.
that's right. So the NRC, does every fixture you have a rating of that? I would
It
assume.
does. And in fact, that industry is moving to something. So we listed an NRC slash SAA, which is a sound absorption average. And all that's done is like added more frequency bands so that depending if you're female or male or whatever the spectrum is, that you're allowed to, that it does more sound absorption. It's just a better value, just a little more accurate. So we
So
publish both. Yeah.
you mentioned a good ceiling tile is 0.75. What's a good light fixture?
That was exactly what I was going to
Did
ask.
you look at
That's
ours?
exactly what I wanted to ask. Yes, because it's a negative plus a positive, is it not?
We define that. Explain that
So
a little
the
more.
sound is bouncing off the existing light fixture and coming straight back
Mm-hmm.
down. You're subtracting that, and then you're adding the sound absorption of your new fixture. So the sound payback or the sales proposition is actually a negative for the old fixture and a positive for the new fixture. So a negative plus a positive should be a positive in this case, but it's actually a negative. So yeah, I know it's a negative, and that it reduces sound even more, right? So the
Correct.
negative
Yeah.
plus the positive is a negative.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it even reduces it more, which is what you want, correct? Maximum sound
Correct.
reduction. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's an actual like above floor to ceiling kind of ratio that if you put fixtures at a certain level, like let's pretend it's 7 feet, maybe it's 5 to 7 feet above finished floor or set at 7 feet, you're going to minimize the sound and you will have some of the same attributes as if you had a horizontal ceiling tile. I mean, that's what spaces used to be, right? You had acoustic tile ceilings everywhere. And it's really in this sort of, like I said, once that got removed, what are you going to do? You're trying to put something back. So because you have the real estate of the light fixture, you could actually add back that back in. You think about a typical office spacing of 8x8 or 10x10 spacing in a space. If you don't have any sound absorption materials, people, you have a lot of things like carpet, maybe. You might have sound wall coverings, maybe. You might have a partition, maybe. If you don't have some of these things, but we're not the answer. I would say we are a contributing factor that helps. And so when you want people to be able to come back and have a similar situation where they used to have an acoustic tile ceiling above their head, you're putting that sort of back, but in a different kind of fashion. It's a little bit more decorative. That's something I've noticed as this sort of market has evolved for acoustic lighting and integrated fixtures, is that it has become a little bit more of a design element because it's a material that we didn't have before. So say 5 years ago, maybe in Europe, maybe they were thinking about it, but I don't think there were a lot of sound absorption integrated lighting fixtures like 5 years ago. And so it's sort of introducing a new method with color and texture and design. There's a lot of that's been added back.
So what is the rating of a good acoustic fixture?
In theory, it'd be 1.0, but here's something that's interesting. And so if you look at the ratings that we have on our fixtures, they're actually over 1.0. So one way to think about it is that when you have lighting and you have reflectance values, you do a lighting calculation in a space, and you look at how much lighting is going around. It's literally doing the exact same thing. It's just that your eyes are perceiving light, and it's bouncing around, and you can either concentrate light or you can make it super diffuse, which makes it a little more comfortable on the eye. So there's a lot of things that you're looking at in terms of lighting. The same kind of thing can be applied to sound, but except you're hearing. So when we send our fixtures to the testing labs, um, the tests that they have are only done for materials that are in a horizontal surface. So when a glass company sends in their material, or a wood company or a concrete company, it's flat. They were not prepared, or nor have they fixed the testing for a vertical or a slanted or three-dimensional object. So our fixtures actually tested higher than 1.0 because they're doing more. But in theory, it follows the same principles as lighting. Is from 0 to 1.0 is your absorption or sound, rating for sound, same as it is for reflectance value in lighting. So there's a lot of interesting correlations. It just depends which of your senses is picking up on it.
It sounds like Mike's got something hot here, but
otherwise, I can see that.
Okay, I've got
I've been
one.
interrupting you too much on this one. You're
thank
good
you.
to go.
So, hey, a non-acoustic fixture, does that have a rating? Is that something that has an NRC rating? No, 0.
It could. No, yeah. You could send it to a lab, and you can, but no one's ever asked architects, because it's not a material that's really factored into their equation, which is kind of
part
funny
of the
to think
payback,
about.
though. You got to get that,
right?
Because, like I said, there's a negative and a positive going on here. You got to get that going. Yeah,
but because there's no sound absorption unless you put sound absorbing materials around it. No one's really. Why would you offer that value? It's going to be unfavorable, and it doesn't hold any value unless it's an architect or someone like that evaluating the space, because they're the ones held accountable for the finished space and design, right? And so, but the funny thing is that you hear is all the time is that anything that's related to sound absorption or blocking is always taken out of the conversation, even when they're first sort of, sketching out their design plans. But what's funny is that once they've moved in, that's when all the employees complain about sound, is after they moved in, because they did not either factor it, or they VE'd any sort of sound absorption material. And it's such a huge problem when people have moved in and there's actually sound, going around because people are now occupying spaces. And then they realize, oh, well, this is a problem. So if you think about maybe incorporating sound integrated lighting fixtures ahead of time, maybe in the SD phase, or even into CDs, you're going to help the problem from the get-go.
Good. And the light fixture itself. Now we talked about, I know there's a material around it that makes it sound absorbing, but the actual fixture and the material inside, is that a standard LED fixture, or are you doing something unique that you don't do in your other non-acoustic fixtures?
I mean, we, being Cooper, we hold ourselves to a certain level, and we developed our own light engine that's an edge-lit acrylic that sort of takes the material and deflects it in a certain distribution up and a certain distribution down. So for us, lighting is paramount. That's the first thing that we're going to think about, and the quality of light that we deliver. So our light engines meet a certain criteria per our standards, which allow them to be performance-based. So I think, that will always be the case for the most, for our company.
And for those fixtures, are people specifying a color and an output, or are you saying multiple colors? It has the ability to dim. Where are we at on that in terms of output and everything?
So it's 0 to 10 volts, so you can dim it. I think it's 1% dimming. But what's interesting, I randomly came across this post on Instagram for an architecture firm I followed. Very random. They actually incorporate the colors per the corporate colors that they were doing in the space. So they picked a box fixture, and it had a light green and a lime green and a dark green kind of color. They incorporated that into everything that was going into the space. They had a green wall that had the 2 tones of colors. They had other sound absorption materials that were in those colors. So the allowance of all of these colors sort of gives a designer a lot of freedom to be able to incorporate what's on trend, what's on par with the color scheme. And now it fits in with the light fixture. Otherwise, you're looking at, what, white, maybe silver, maybe black, and that's about it. But now you get to integrate colors that actually match. So everything looks very intentional.
Good. And the fixture itself, I assume, is not replaceable down the road or able to be serviced once the light is out. You need to dispose of the acoustic part that goes with it.
So interesting you mentioned that. The actual acoustic material itself is 100% recyclable. So
Okay.
it's made of recycled plastic. So 60% of the content, which is one of the highest, is actually comes from, you take these plastic bottles, you melt them down, you produce this sort of nylon thread, you compress it, you've made these sort of sound absorption boards. And that's really what's doing the bulk of the sound absorption. The Phil's felt prides himself on felt and the color variations, and this is like a merino wool that comes from sheep, and they are unharmed. They just get a haircut once a year. It's kind of funny. And then the company, the manufacturing process has allowed for these variations in all these colors. We're actually up to 96 now with their new color scheme, which are in, not just in trend, but are really on par with what designers kind of want to incorporate. So I don't know if there's a color you can't get, and it's going to be darn close if it's a corporate color or something to that effect. So that all ties into the branding of a space. It all ties into the continuity and just what a designer's trying to achieve. And so nothing would really look out of place, including the lighting.
So is there a software system that can calculate how many fixtures you need, or how do they? I don't know anything about the sound part of it. So I get lighting, like you need this many lights, but how do you know how many lights you
Right.
need that have the acoustic ability? How does that get calculated?
So there are different methods, and a lot of them are fairly home baked, I would say, because if you think about lighting getting bead, sound absorption, and sound materials get on a higher track. I would say, on our website, with our products, we've developed an acoustic calculator, and it all ties into our noise reduction coefficient and SAA values that sort of work into that. So what we've really done is said, what could we benchmark this at? Okay, if you had a horizontal ceiling tile and you had a certain amount, so you can plug in that square footage of an existing system. And then you have to put the rating in and how many fixtures you want to use, and it'll tell you the equivalency. So you can either max it out. So if you had 1,000 square feet of acoustic ceiling tile, you'll get the value of how many equivalent fixtures ours takes. Or you have the ability to say, you know what, we're just going to use like 20 or 30 of them. So it'll tell you how much more sound absorption material you need in that space based off of that. So it gives you kind of both flexibilities.
So this is not the first time that the lighting industry has embarked on this. I do believe the K12 acrylic material, Greg, the K12 material with the diamond little posts in it. I believe that's in all the troffers. I believe that's a sound absorbing material.
The prismatic lens,
yeah,
maybe?
prismatic lenses. I believe that the function of that on wraps and on 2x4 troffers is to engage in some kind of sound dampening. But has Cooper considered that this is all health effects of lighting play? Like a lot of times, we've discovered that integrative lighting or healthy lighting is like an umbrella under which a myriad of different wellness and health effects measures fall. So slips and fall reduction would be one of those things. Circadian photobiology,
Sure.
different types of cueing. Greg, there's a couple more in helping Alzheimer's patients sleep better. There's like a bunch of different techniques that are independent of one another, and the fact that they all use LEDs and control systems and stuff like that, and color temperature changes and whatever. But there's like this basket of things that are improving human health and wellness. I think this falls into that world. Has Cooper considered advertising in that manner for that?
Um, we don't really. I think we're still trying to figure it out. I think there's still a lot of,
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah,
we all
because
are.
again, yeah, again, as a large scale conglomerate, I mean, you have a responsibility to put out information that is accurate and beneficial. Um, when I've looked at this presentation originally, when we pitch it, we looked at a series that was actually done by, um, our partnership in terms of looking at something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs
Hmm.
applied to workplace strategy. And when you look at that pyramid, you're going to see at the very bottom tier is the most tangible, which is the physiological. So you can affect people in terms of lighting, you can affect the temperature, you can affect the noise. There's a multitude of attributes that contribute to that level that are easier and tangible through our products or any products that are integrating sound absorption and lighting together. So that was sort of how we looked at it, sort of saying direct benefits, quick benefits to market, all of those were attributed in sort of this lower layer of the physiological of that Maslow's hierarchy of needs applied to workplace. But that being said, yes, there's multitudes of levels above it, in self-actualization and all these other things that, people can look at their circadian rhythm and those things. There's other products that have those benefits or we're looking at right now. Once we sort of are seeing how our sound absorption fixtures are doing, we can slowly thus think about, the other things that are not yet perfected in the market that we could look at to maybe integrate. And Signify, Cooper being a part of Signify has given us that open threshold to sort of take a look at those technologies that we could incorporate even thus further.
Is there a specific job or application you can refer to that use these fixtures? Why did they use them? What exactly did they do? Anything that you can share with us on that?
Sure. I mean, I think the architects and interior designers are looking at this a lot more than they maybe used to, and I think the introduction from the lighting industry into that space has sort of made it an awareness, and being able to sort of use it in helping to sculpt their architecture. Phil's themselves has architectural acoustic ceilings done in a 3-dimensional way. If you incorporate lighting into some of these, the way we go forward with, I mean, it all sort of integrates together. It just gives everybody, lighting or interiors or architecture, a little bit more tools in the toolbox to kind of help deliver the space that they want to their clients.
So you brought up Maslow, okay?
Uh-oh.
You brought him
Okay.
up. So at the bottom, physiological needs. So what Maslow was really saying is that if you don't have enough food, water, warmth, and rest, there's nothing else that matters. That's how the pyramid starts off, right?
Okay.
And then it goes into safety. Like if you've eaten and you've had enough to drink and you're warm and you've rested, then you start to worry about security and safety. Is someone going to kill me? Should I build a house? Right? Or whatever. You go
Sure.
into belonging and love needs. So now that you're safe and secure, maybe you want to have a spouse, maybe you want to start a family and these kinds of things. Esteem needs. Now you need to feel good. You want to build your prestige. You want to start to get a grip on lighting podcasts, something like that, right? And then you go to self-actualization, which is that. So you skipped from physiological needs over to self-actualization. You went from what
That's
right to
all
the
I can
bottom to the
remember.
top. Yeah, no, but you went from.
Yeah.
So I don't know where this fits in. I think it is in that self-actualization area where what we're trying to do is create healthy spaces that nudge
Yeah.
people to have good behaviors, that reduce distractions, that lower.
And stress. Yeah.
Yes, because there's like an attack from the things that have made us safe and protected and connected are now attacking us and distracting us and causing us to lose our wellness. And what we need is more silence and more
Quiet.
ability
Yeah.
to quiet down and to focus on things and to not have
Yeah.
beeps going off all the time and to be annoyed by someone else's phone rings. How annoying is it when someone has their phone on loud in a room and it rings across? Like, get your phone off, sucker! I'm throwing pens at
That's
people.
right.
So yeah, whatever,
Totally.
it's interesting. Whatever we can contribute to allow people to de-stress is super
Yeah,
important, Greg Eric, right now. Can we
Yeah,
sell it though? I'm going back to again because Greg's the master salesman. Can we sell it, brother? I'm wondering how a distributor gets this out there.
I think so. I mean, if the request is there, I've had one request in my 15 years of a sound absorbing light fixture, and it was in a music room at a school. They want like a band room where they're practicing an instrument. So there, yeah, I could, but I haven't. I don't have a lot of applications, but I understand new construction. If you're building a place, if you have a new office layout, I could see it being a possibility.
It's going to be tough to break into the renovation market with this. That's where,
yeah,
that's going to be tough. If it's not being designed, it's going to be difficult for distributors to sell it. Because you need that
sure,
designer,
sure.
you need that person that's coordinating it with the colors and the whole thing. So I think Greg, this is more of a new construction, place where they're, build, you know what I'm saying? I just can't, I'm wondering, like there's the Get a Grip studios here in Toronto needs a couple of these, toot sweet, but,
We can help you.
but I
But
mean,
I think in an office environment like the one I was talking about, where maybe they have acoustic tiles right now, or 2x2, 2x4, whatever, laying ceiling, and they're going to remove that, and they have
Yeah,
cubes, and they're going to remove
mm,
those. Then that's a
yeah,
major overhaul, and at that point, that's where something they're asking for direct suspended lighting anyways. And
mhm.
you mentioned it earlier, but I assume you wouldn't need every fixture. You would take an area and figure out how many fixtures, and then you'd supplement that with other lighting. Is that
yeah.
typically what you see?
I mean, it's yeah. I mean, I'd say linear baffles are probably an easier kind of throughout space type product, but where it's sort of just working hand in hand. So because if a designer would care or corporation would care to relate everything to each other, so that this allows you to have sort of continuity in the design space. But linear baffles are vertical baffles are probably going to be your primary, uh, you know, kind of contributor to removing acoustic horizontal ceiling, and then the Shaper Sense products, those are industry leading, and that could be more you know intentional in terms of like a mapping, like, oh, here's an identification space that people can go to or collaborate over, or a cafeteria space where it's super loud and we've removed everything, and so we want to add something back into there. We wouldn't put linear baffles in this space, but we could now tie in all of the colors and sort of the feature benefits of that to make it just seem more intentional.
Now, given that you guys have been doing it for roughly 4 years, are you still advancing the product? Is there new things getting learned all the time, or is acoustics pretty solid? Like, we know this is the right stuff, we know this size, that kind of thing, or is it always advancing?
I'd say it's always advancing. The observation after introducing it to the market, and it was really an infancy when we started. The reaction has been more in terms of design of the product and using the element of acoustic materials to develop a design versus the properties themselves. And so people are it's sort of giving a lighting manufacturer a different material to work with that they had not before, with a whole group of colors and other things and shapes and forms, because for the most part you can CNC cut these sheets of sound absorption boards. What we've done with our partnership is that not only are we doing that, but we also add a layer of felt that gives that sort of purposed color that's a little bit different than everybody else. And so that's kind of why our products, I think, the density of the material is a lot different than what most people are offering. But what the industry or our lighting industry or even architects have sort of gravitated towards using as a design element over maybe sound absorption, in other than maybe the vertical baffles.
Okay, before we go, because we're coming up on
Okay.
45 minutes here,
All
Sohana,
right.
tell me about your 13 patents. What
Oh,
did you invent? Come on, what do you got?
um, let's see. It's all over the board. I've had responsibility with so many architectural brands. I'm trying to think. We had I had a downlighting brand called RSA, and we had created this sort of call it almost like a grid system of products that where you could integrate a light or not, and
Mhm.
then you could create sort of geometric shapes with that. Shaper Sense was a number of them with the sound absorption materials because we
Mhm.
were kind of at the cusp of introducing that to the market. I'm trying to think of some other ones. You got me on the spot here. I'm trying to look. I actually had
Well,
some
so the good news
hanging
is
here.
that most people wouldn't forget about the patent they got. So you have 13. So you're just like this one, that one, this one. It's a lot. So that's good.
Yeah.
That you're in the pro
Oh,
leagues with that. Yeah, go ahead.
our Light Architect app. So this is an augmented reality app that we have. It's available, downloadable for free that we contributed to. And then there was one that hasn't been published yet, but I included. It's just sort of a like integrated lighting with germicidal UV type products. So yeah, just
So
it's all over the board.
I'm getting a letter from the producer to shut it down because we're not supposed to go past 45 minutes. But do
Okay.
you have any final thoughts, Sohana, for the guests and listeners?
I think it's definitely something that's integrated sound absorption light fixtures with acoustics is something that you need to kind of do your homework on, but it's not intimidating. I think if you do your research and you sort of look around and see how it can get applied, it's probably there's a space for it just about everywhere. So,
Yeah.
and thank you both for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh,
And
get
I
out of here.
had to make a halo comment to your hats because that's pretty awesome.
Oh, we're gonna get you some hats too. Folks, I think Sohana said it right when it doesn't seem that intimidating to me, Greg Eric.
No, I think it's
No,
natural in a way, right?
yeah, put
It's
put
the
another
next step.
arrow in your quiver, folks. Put another arrow in your quiver
Yeah.
when you're out there talking to the people about lighting, and let them know that sound absorption's now on the table for light fixtures. It's pretty easy to do. Next thing
There
you
you
know, maybe you're gonna have a couple sales. Maybe you get to mark it up a little bit more because no one else has it. Come on, folks. We all want to make a little bit of scratch. That's what this show is about. That's why you all listen to
Yeah.
it. Go to cooperlighting.com, Greg. That's COOPERLIGHTING.com.
That's right. Talk about forward-thinking lighting solutions. That's a perfect example today. Something that no one else is really getting into, like Cooper is and Signify, and that's why you guys are the world leader in lighting. Keep it up, please. We need it.
Good. Awesome.
cooperlighting.com, and thank you to Sohana Arni for being so gracious with us and coming on the show. And if you made it this far, remember the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, all the members, we thank them so much for supporting all of the media we create to push this industry forward. We're talking about Get a Grip on Lighting. We're talking about dark skies, contrast ratios. We're talking about all the shows that we do here in the studio to get the conversations going about all these kind of things. And we thank you for your support. If you haven't joined Nailed and you're a distributor, what are you waiting for? Come on, folks. Come on, we've been telling you about this for years now. Go to naild.org. And of course, the NCQLP, I hope this goes out in time to tell you to sign up for their exam coming up in November. That's ncqlp.org. Folks, if you made it this far to the end, I know I speak on behalf of Sohana, Greg, and myself, and we say we love you guys. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.